started. Going to call this meeting to order. If you'd all please rise. We do not have a pastor here this evening. Juan Romero, could you lead us in prayer this evening, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rick Steinmeier, would you like to lead us in prayer, please?
All right. Our Heavenly Father, please be with us tonight as we make decisions that are affecting maybe 50,000 people. Help us and guide us and with your mercy and grace to us all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Rick. Thank you, Juan. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carumba? Here. Councilman Purdy?
Here.
Councilwoman Carr? Mayor Simmons?
Here.
Councilman Corey?
Here.
Councilman Gibson?
Present.
Councilman Forbes?
Here. Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to start with public comments on agenda items.
I'm sorry, am I on mute?
I think
Hello.
Laura's.
Laura, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yes, we need to.
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purden?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr? Councilwoman Carr?
Aye. Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Here.
Councilman
We're
Corey?
taking roll call.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Present.
Councilman Forbes?
Mayor, I meant, do we have to give approval for her to be on the call?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Sorry.
All right. So I make a motion that we allow Councilwoman Carr to participate by phone. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purden?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Great. Now we're going to start with public comment. Members of the public that would like to speak, please come forward at this time. And thanks for being with us.
Hello, I'm Chip Greenwood. I represent Buffalo Chips Restaurant. Longtime resident, 25 years myself. Business has been there 38 years on Old 41. Just want to say thanks for the opportunity to let me speak, and thank you, Councilman and Mayor Peter, for all your service to the community. Really appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you.
I just want to put my opinion in. I guess we're talking about food trucks again, so I guess there's no real definite plan or no business model set. But I wanted to put my 2 cents in and just express that I don't think food trucks on the Old 41 corridor is a good solution. It's not viable. I believe food trucks are not out of the question, but seeing as with the conditions that are going on right now, all the other little businesses around there, and not just me. I mean, I don't know how food trucks would affect my business very much, but a lot of other little businesses, they do that kind of thing already, have tacos and what have you. So anyways, I know you were talking about across the street there, Bamboo Village, which is used already for parking for Riverside Park. That's not a good choice. Obviously, that should be some type of parking area, multi-use. They already use it for parking for Riverside Park, so turn that into some type of park or a parking garage. We're going to need parking in the future or something, but you took out Bamboo Village with trailers, and now we're talking about putting trailers in there again that sell food. So just not a good idea in that area. And if you look at we have a taco truck down there already and a wing truck that's right in that area on Old 41, and I don't see lines of people lined up there for it. So I would encourage you to vote no if you're thinking about that area. The dog track area, as you know, they're going through a lot of transition right now. There's a lot of area, they already have food trucks there on certain days, so that dog track area might be a great spot to put a lot of food trucks in. I'm just hoping the city doesn't want to get into private enterprise, like we're talking about a big build out, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for restrooms, water, electric. I think the city should just stick to, providing amenities for the public, like Riverside Park, Doggy Park, great ideas, right? But to try to start a venture on your own, I think if it's not a viable business model for a private venture, I don't think, the city should be getting into it. So let someone take it over and start a food truck thing if they think it's going to work. But Yeah, the other thing was, I just wish we'd focus on improving Old 41. My dad started Old 41 improvements years ago with Lee County. We spent millions of dollars on Old 41, and it's beautiful now, you know, and so I just think we should still work on the blighted areas there if we could. Not to pick on somebody, but Central Park Plaza Motel across from the Maria's, you know, that needs some work. So I just wanted to let stress, just be conscious when you're voting. You know, it's not a good idea on an Old 41, especially at this time. We're all, you know, my business is down 180,000 sales, maybe 40, 50 grand in net profit or something, honestly, up to this point. So we need to make some of that money back. That's really all I had to say, and I kind of wanted to get a feel for what's going on with events in Riverside Park and when that's going to open up too. I'll get with my councilman, Mike, about that, but because I want to have my chicken wing eating contest again in January. So thanks for your time, you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. There's an item on here about the mobile food carts. My previous career was in the food business, and every restaurant or every food operation I was involved with, there had to be a food handler's license involved for the protection of the public. So I think that should be required for anybody that's selling food. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Welcome.
Excuse me. For the record, Dwight Essman, Paradise Road, and good evening. I want to talk about the food trucks. I don't own a restaurant, but my feeling is not now. Maybe someday, but not now. Keep the current limit of 5 trucks. Local restaurants have been hit very hard by the pandemic. Before you introduce a new form of competition that has very few employees and low overhead, give these restaurants a chance to come back from this. Many have suffered greatly, and some will go out of business with this new competition. Some of you will say, well, we should have done this before. Maybe we should have, but we didn't. When will be the time? I don't know. But before you authorize something like this, please answer these 3 questions. Are there complaints about noise and litter? I made a quick phone call down to Collier County Code Enforcement, and the answer is there have been many. If food truck parks have a liquor license, have there been problems that required the police to come? I don't know. What are the overall results in other cities that have done this? Are they happy they did it? Why not create a group to get these answers? And then when the time comes back to revisit this issue, maybe you'll have some answers. And I'll volunteer to be on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Other members of the public that would like to speak? Good evening, Juan.
Good afternoon, Mayor. By the records, my name is Juan Romero, living in Bonita Springs for 33 years, and I'm here to talk about the program, soccer program, and reestablishing the contract between the city and Casa Mexico, and continue to developing the program. We live in a very difficult situation right now. Everything is different, and the virus is here, and we need to learn how to live with it. We cannot stay home and be afraid of it. And our families, the adults, kids, everybody wants to do some activity, some sports. It's very important. It's important for your mind and your body, and really wants to be able to come back and start working and developing program where we can have the safety issues like using the mask, sanitizing, distancing between people, but definitely we need to start and continue actually do our activities, sports. So sports for adults is one of them. And thank you for all the support. And we are here if we need to answer any questions. But thank you for your support. And like I said, we got to learn a new style to live with that. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Juan. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Other members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Council, what is your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second. And I'd like to comment on G.
Okay, do you want to pull it?
But, no. Motion to approve, I second it.
Okay, but you'd like to comment, okay, we'll do comments at the end, okay, great. There's been a motion to approve and a second. Council, is there further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Pertnett?
Aye.
Councilwoman Clark?
Aye?
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Caramba?
Aye.
Great, Laura?
Yes, I was just wondering if Juan might consider a more inclusive name for the soccer league. I don't know, just a thought.
Laura, could you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
If Juan and the league would consider a more inclusive name for because it's Casa Mexico Adult Soccer League. So just wondering if maybe we could be more inclusive.
Well, we've had those discussions up here on inclusion in titles and names, and we haven't come to any agreement. So they're asking you, Juan, if you would consider changing the name of Casa Mexico. Maybe you could make it the Diversity Soccer League or something like that.
No, just like he have a conversation with the league and I don't know, even, throw out names. Maybe there's some ideas, a fun name. I'm not trying to be diversive or divisive. I just think we could maybe do a little bit more inclusive, but it's great, league. I'm not commenting on the league per se.
You raise a great point, Laura, so thank you. Jesse?
Before you speak, one, is this a name that's legally a business entity that you already have established?
Yes, we have
with the
a
state of Florida?
registration of the name.
Right.
And I just want to remind you, we are celebrating the inclusion of the Hispanic community, celebrating the month of the Hispanic heritage. And we are very proud to be Hispanics, and being myself is a Mexican-American citizen, and the name is just identified ourselves. But our program is open to anybody, any countries, any languages, any people who wants just to play soccer, and that's the reason why we do this, because in the field, it's just the passion to play soccer. And we are not, want to go into politics of if we including people or not, or the names, if they are Cardinals or they are Redskin football. That is too much, Let's try to stay in the basic thing, which is provide a program for sports, provide the support for the children, for the students, for having them have fun. That's all we need. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Juan.
and I also believe that you're a proud Venetian and American. So I was just saying, even, just throw it out to folks and think about, I don't know,
I got it.
Mexicana, just something that is more, not so straightforward, this is House Mexico. I
Laura?
don't know.
Laura?
Yes,
Th-
Yes.
It's a legal
Yes.
it's a legal entity and a business that's already set up and established with the state of Florida. So
Yeah,
what you're doing
and
is
it's
asking to
called
banter about with
doing
people
business
hypothetically
as.
changing the
People
name,
have
which is just a
corporate names that
nonsensical
do
thing
business
to
on.
ask.
Okay, I'm
thank
done
you.
talking about it.
Great,
I
thank
have
you.
no more comments. Thank
Perfect.
you for indulging.
Excellent.
Thank you. Mel, would you like to speak?
Yes, hi, my name is Mel Briseño, resident of Bonita Springs my whole life. We run the Bonita Springs Adult Soccer League, but we do it through Casa Mexico. But there is a page, Facebook, that it says Bonita Springs Soccer League on it. So Casa Mexico is just to work with the city, to do the paperwork and all of that stuff. But the league is called Bonita Springs Soccer League.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I just have a comment about the.
I was gonna say, Amy, I'm sorry, in the
I'm sorry,
microphone.
I just
Thank-
have a comment on E.
Okay.
Just a clarification, and of course, I understand how we want to increase the operating reserves, but I wonder if we could get an accounting of how that affects the unassigned fund balance for the general fund? I assume that diminishes that, right?
Right.
We up it to 4,000,003 or whatever it is, 4,000,004.
Ann Wright, Finance Director. Yes, it's a $200,000 increase, so it, in an essence, reduces the amount of unassigned fund balance, and that's how it was actually shown in the city manager's draft budget.
Okay, so it was shown as 4,000,003 in that?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
so we just have to go through the things. Okay,
Yes.
fine, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Mike? Yeah.
Well, and just to clarify that our vote included the addendum to the consent agenda.
What was the addendum?
It was on approval of the budget transfer for the multi-use pathways and sidewalk project.
Oh, okay.
It was the reassignment of the funds between
Yeah.
CDBG and impact fees.
Right.
Okay, good.
Okay. Great. Thanks, everybody. All right, we are going, we don't have any proclamations or presentations. We're going to move on to mayor and council member items. And item A here, and I'm not, oh, wonderful. I do see him here. That's great. Introduction by Dr. Michael Parsons of the Bonita Springs Water Steward. And this is my item, Mayor Simmons, green sheet number 20-09-282. Maybe you could join us at the podium, please? And welcome. That just proves you have to look around the room before I say, I don't think he's here. Sorry about that.
Just
Welcome.
walked in.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. So I'd like to introduce, this is Nicole Weigold. So she will be our new Bonita Water Steward. And so, give her. So Nicole is an FGCU graduate. She was one of our Blair interns when she was an undergraduate student, so it's part of a Blair Fellowship program, and she was instrumental in doing a lot of our education and outreach activities, including a lot of our water quality work down on Fort Myers Beach. Some of you may have heard of our What's in the Water program that we do down there, and so she played a big role in that. Familiar with our waters, knows how to work a boat, knows how to collect samples and analyze data, and the real thing that impressed me with Nicole and why I basically nominated her for this position is she's a great people person. She's a really good communicator, and she gets along well with the public. She can talk about technical details and put them into layperson's terms and really communicate things well. So I'm looking forward to this opportunity. Thank you again for giving this to us, and I hope this leads to stronger relationships between the city of Bonita and the Florida Gulf Coast University and the Vester Field Station. And this is only the beginning. And I don't know if you want to share anything or say hello or.
I would like to say hello first off, and I would also like to say thank you for the opportunity. It means a lot to me. I definitely want to be more in touch with the community and kind of express how important it is that our environment is taken care of, mostly because that's, for us, that's for our tourism, and that's kind of how we are able to connect with everybody else is through the environment as well. So again, I would like to say thank you, and that's all.
Thank you very much. Council, do we have questions, or
No,
Amy?
And I just want to say welcome, and I look forward to meeting with you personally and having those initial conversations with you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Jesse?
Dr. Parsons, thank you for your help throughout this entire process and on the other 10 things I decide to email you on throughout the week. I appreciate you always being very responsive. I'm looking very forward to meeting you, ma'am, and I'm very excited to have a water steward in the city, and you being our first. Good luck to you, and I'm very excited to watch your progress. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Chris?
Just welcome to you both, and I look forward to working with you as we go forward.
Thank you. Mike?
Just thanks and welcome.
Fred?
Big thank you and a big welcome.
Likewise, this was 2 years in the making, I think, as you know, but we got there, and thank you, council, thank you, staff, thank you, President Martin, and everybody at the Water School and Vesta Marine Lab. We obviously are very, very excited. People have heard me say it, and you touched on it with your comments this evening. Our economy is our environment is our economy, so we're very much looking forward to tightening things up, monitoring our water personally, so we don't have to rely on others, looking at the blue-green algae, looking at fertilizer ordinances, and looking at red tide and everything else in between, from the east end of town where we are now all the way to the northwest corner over in Lover's Key, the north end of Lover's Key. So, and everything in Bonita Springs in between, and not down in Collier County and not over in Fort Myers Beach. But having said that, thank you very, very much and welcome. We're really looking forward to it. Thanks for being here tonight. Very excited.
I too would like to welcome Nicole and look forward to meeting her. And hi, Dr. Parsons.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I think just a quick part of the timeline is right now, I guess we're just finalizing the last details on the contract before the funds will be sent over to FGCU, and then we have to actually create the position then, and that shouldn't take too long actually, and I'll make sure it doesn't. And since her name is actually on the contract, that'll obviate any need for advertising and interviewing, so on and so forth on that front. And we have an office spot picked out, boats right there picked out already, so we're ready to hit the ground rolling pretty soon. So I would anticipate probably within 3 weeks or so, once that contract is finalized. She's already an employee at FGCU right now, so it should be an easy transition.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Very excited. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, looking forward to working together.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Okay, we're going to move on to the second reading and public hearing of the following ordinance. Derek?
An ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs, Florida, amending Division 37, Subdivision 2, Temporary Uses, and Subdivision 3, Mobile Food Vendors of the Land Development Code relating to mobile food vendors, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. This is the second reading. The first reading was held back in March.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening, John.
As you remember, before the world shut down, we had discussed changing the regulations for food trucks, both in terms of where they would be permitted and also how many would be permitted. And there was a great deal of discussion on whether the 5 trucks was appropriate. We last left our discussion with the idea that we would start permitting the location of a food truck and not the food trucks themselves, and only have food trucks provide registration that they have received all of their necessary inspections and certifications prior to operating at any of those locations. Individual locations on property would be handled administratively according to the current draft, and anybody that wanted to install more than 3 food trucks would need to come in under the regulations for a food truck park, which would then require a public hearing before you and ultimately your approval. So that is the very quick and dirty highlights, but I'm not sure exactly what areas are left to discuss since it's been a while.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Jesse.
Just to clarify for folks listening at home who might not understand, John's trying to point out that food truck parks and the food truck ordinance are kind of 2 different animals. We're not talking and or voting on the same thing. So if you're listening at home, That's kind of what John's trying to get across to you today, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion on what a food truck park is and what this food truck ordinance is, and that's kind of the separation there.
Yes, sir, Councilman. In fact, if you don't mind, I'll go a little bit further on that. And the fact
Please.
that we've looked at individual locations of 1 or 2 trucks as having a completely different impact than the food truck park. Food truck parks really are going to be entitled specifically for the number of pads. They're the only ones that would have the ability to apply for a consumption on premises license. Individual food trucks would not have that ability under these draft regulations, and they would be handled differently in the fact that the mitigation necessary to accommodate a food truck park is generally significantly different than handling 1 or 2 food trucks that would be located on a commercial property. So, thank you, Councilman.
Okay. Council?
I had a question, John. If I remember right, there's an exemption of Hickory Island.
Currently, the regulations as they're written would not permit food trucks on Little Hickory Island.
And refresh my memory as to why that is.
That is currently, under the existing regulations, one of the places that food trucks are not permitted, and that prohibition was simply carried over into this current draft.
So tradition.
One of our strongest allies.
And is there an exemption for downtown or the old 41 corridor?
Yes, sir, within the overlay. And it's not for the overlay entirely, it's for, food trucks would be permitted under your current, or at least your transmitted comp plan amendment in the innovation zone, which is basically the industrial section of Old 41 currently. But that would be the only place they would be permitted.
So help me, what's the industrial section?
It's the very south end of Old 41, west of Old 41, east of Industrial Street, south of Tennessee, basically south of Shangri-La, the Shangri-La Hotel.
South of Shangri-La, okay. Go ahead.
I was not on the last council that did this, and I mean, frankly, for me, things that based on tradition generally don't sit well with me. I have all the respect in the world for the island, but what makes them different than the rest of the city? And one of the things that when I was looking into this that I realized is that they're deeded in a way that that type of activity is not allowed out there anyway. So essentially, we would be then taking that responsibility as a city, as opposed to them being able to deal with it on an individual basis. And that really just makes them special from the rest of the city, in my opinion. I don't understand the backstory on that, or if somebody has a compelling reason why they should be carved out, I'm all ears, but I don't really understand the distinction between the island and the rest of the city and the special treatment that it seems that we're giving them. So if anybody has any thoughts on that, anybody who voted on this last time, or staff, or anyone, I'd love to hear.
John, any thoughts?
That was the prohibition that was recommended during the last discussion. I know that several residents along Little Hickory had asked for them to be prohibited in that area. Right. I don't know if there was additional information that was provided to other council members. I know that other than a general prohibition, I was not included in anything that I remember.
Councilmember, there was public comment at the previous meetings that we had where they had requested that it be exempt
Okay, so,
for residents there.
So for Derek, am I correct in my assessment that these folks already have deed protections on what's allowed out there and not?
I honestly don't know. All I can tell you about this particular ordinance is that it doesn't add new restrictions to Hickory Island. They were already, I believe it was already prohibited, and the downtown district. If you choose to remove them, it's the council's discretion.
And it's not necessarily that I 100% would like to remove them if there was a reason. But if if the only reason is that a couple people on the island don't like it, I don't know necessarily that that's compelling enough for me. I don't know how the rest of council feels.
I feel much the same way. I do think there's a reason to have an exemption for 041. I think the city has invested a lot of money in downtown. And to me, it seems to me to be fair to exempt 041 from 40, all the way through downtown, as opposed to well, if you're north of Shangri-La, you can put in a food truck. So I don't know. But I guess I'm more along the lines of why would Hickory Island get an exemption? I mean,
That's what I don't get either.
Well, there's traffic, Mr. Mayor, Laura Carr.
Yes, Laura.
We have traffic considerations, and the intent was for the Bonita Beach Road corridor down there to start improving itself and looking classier. So with the traffic and the fact that it has been a tradition and a concern with regard to the flow of traffic and the look, we decided to continue not having food trucks. And I think it's a great idea not to have food trucks down on Hickory Island.
I mean, did they secede from the city? I'm
No, but
confused.
there's a different character there, and and even the Bonita Beach Vision Study recognizes that. And I do think that in the past, when we only allowed 5 food trucks in the entire city, there wasn't much risk of it being violated. And there are different deed considerations on that area, and I do think that food trucks can change the character of a road. So I think we should maintain what was there in the previous thing, the previous regulation. And I'm in favor of keeping the downtown area as it is, but we still will allow it in the industrial area. Is that true? I'm sorry?
Correct. And a little bit of history behind the location within Old 41 is that's the area the city had looked to encourage everything from microbreweries to industrial type uses. And in that area, it was deemed to be a consistent accessory use to those. And that's why we had looked to provide those down there. It was really written as almost an exception to what was done in the rest of Old 41, as opposed to starting to let them filter in from that place and then maybe look at expanding it later. It was really to focus them in that area. And in terms of Hickory, Little Hickory Island, there has been a lot of discussion on how commercial uses impact that area. It is unique, it is special. There's only one 2-lane road that comes in and out. And we have had extensive discussions on permanent commercial uses, let alone the addition of temporary commercial uses. So there would be, if council wants to take a look at changing that, obviously you can take whatever action you would like tonight. This is the second reading, and that would be the final decision. However, for that area, because of the special considerations, maybe some thought will be given to maybe focusing a specific discussion just on that portion of the city, but that's entirely up to the council.
Well, I have heard this deed restriction argument a lot, John, but I have not ever been able to find it. Do you have any evidence that deed restriction actually exists?
I have heard the discussion on deed restrictions thousands of times. I think I've seen the deed restrictions out there a handful of times. It's been a couple of years since I've looked at them. There's a lot of things that are restricted. I'm not exactly sure what you would still be able to restrict out there and what you wouldn't be able to, because there's a lot of things that I remember that would be rather questionable to restrict today.
And I also think there's some merit to the idea that, we've got a lot of restaurants in Bonita Springs that haven't recovered, some of which I don't think will ever reopen. And even for those that are running at 50%, it's more than just the owners and what the owners are able to net out of those businesses. It's also the employees, the waitresses, the waiters, who have a lot of their income tied up in tips. And it's the cooks and the dishwashers and so forth. There was an article in the paper I think it was last weekend or Monday, about this one particular waiter that was laid off in March with COVID, and how ended up forcing him out of his apartment, where he ultimately ended up living in his tent. He is now back working a little bit, but it's been really rough. And I would think if we want to, I think the restaurants, the brick and mortar restaurants, are a vital part of this community. And I'm not against food trucks, but I would like to see us do something to allow some time for the restaurants that operate in this town to be able to, grab hold a little bit more than by their fingertips and by their fingernails and hang on. So.
Mr. Mayor, Laura Carr?
Yes, Laura.
John Domer, isn't this a dictated order-based ordinance from the state?
The state had looked at taking a little bit of the control to license food trucks and maintain that with them. What this draft proposes to do is to not license the trucks themselves, and instead approves the locations. We would only ensure that the food trucks that want to operate at those approved locations have had all of their state inspections and county health department inspections. But yes, ma'am, that is true. This was partially in reaction to some of the state statutes that were being proposed at the time.
Thank you.
Just to add additional, our current licensing program is now inconsistent with state law. Well, this program, as laid out in this ordinance, actually only regulates the location. It doesn't actually regulate the food truck itself.
But we don't really have it. We don't have any authority over the food trucks because the state's taken that away.
Correct.
All right. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Fred.
Couple points. I think what Mr. Greenwood's son said makes a lot of sense. If you bring in and allow a lot of food trucks, especially on Old 41, you're going to put some restaurants out of business. And I'm not against food trucks. In fact, I have no objection to the momentum out at Hunter's Ridge, having 2 of them. But you got to realize something. We get real estate taxes ad valorem from brick and mortar restaurants. You don't collect any revenue from food trucks for the city. So if you put restaurants out of business, you're actually losing ad valorem. You're not gaining any. You're putting some other people out of work that are working in those brick and mortar restaurants. So I think that what's drafted up right now is good. It allows somebody like the Momentum to have 2 food trucks before they need to get anything more on their premise, if their place is approved, right, John?
Sir.
Okay, so I have no problem with that. I think that Hickory Island is a unique place, and I think that excluding them there, I could see some exception where if somebody wanted to have a private party and they're going to have 1 food truck there for a limited number of hours, and it's okay with the neighbors, I could see that being okay if community development is sure that there's no serious objection from the neighbors. I think that what you've got in there about Old 41 form is probably as good as you're going to get. I think the comment about the dog track being a great place for a food truck park is right where it needs to go to. It wouldn't create a nuisance, because when you put food truck parks in an area where there's residents, you've got problems in River City. Music playing at night, because usually they have a tiki bar and all that. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Fred. Amy, and then Jesse.
Just a couple questions. For the downtown exception, how far north on Old 41 does that go?
It includes through the overlay, and I believe it will include to,
Is it beyond West Terry?
I believe it's to Rosemary, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
I can double check on that, but that's my understanding.
All right. And then, is there any provision for any kind of sunsetting of the location approvals?
No, ma'am, not unless there is a reason to go back and take a look at it. Once the location is permitted, it would be permitted unless they either wanted to rescind the approval or vacate it, and or there were code enforcement violations that would cause the city to rescind the permit.
What if it caused problems that we weren't aware of when we first approved the location?
That would be part of the code enforcement process that would take place then, but it would have to be under some sort of standard that the city currently has.
Mm-hmm.
But we would be able to take action just like any other business.
Okay.
Jesse?
A couple things. My main issue with this is that I don't feel that it's our job to be regulating markets. I have, we don't say how many Little Caesars we can have. We don't have another bike. If somebody wants to put a bike shop down the street from Gibson's, I said, let the free market work that out. No offense, Mike. I know you do a great job over there.
Or we already have $3 stores,
right.
why not approve another
We
one?
have to, right, exactly. So it's like
back in the day.
And we have, it seems weird that the thing that I like about this ordinance is that we're getting rid of the 5. Because the honest to God truth is the market is going to regulate this just like Adam Smith said it would. They aren't going to have, the idea that there's going to be 20 is a red herring. It's because people running in a post-COVID economy, these small businesses that are making very little, are not going to be lining up 20 deep when the market is not there for them. So I have a problem with us single-handedly deciding we can have A, B, C, or D. So the fact that we get rid of that, I do enjoy that. And, I'm not like the food truck champion of the world, but I would say that it gives younger people options, and they love food trucks. And furthermore, if you follow how it went down in Collier County, Bayshore used to be known as a place where you get drugs and prostitutes. Now it's got the highest growing it's got the highest growing ad valorem increase in all of Collier County. And that's all because that entire district was redone based on Bayshore. So this idea that they're so distasteful that we couldn't possibly let the people by the water have them, or they're so distasteful that it's gonna ruin us, I don't think those are based on fact. So I really have an issue with continuing the precedent that somehow Little Hickory is a separate entity from the city of Bonita Springs and should get some type of special treatment. I think I'm going to vote for this, but I would really like to have the discussion on council about removing 11A, unless somebody has a compelling reason as to why we should not. Because to me, just like with the water tax or anything else, it should be the same for everybody. And the fact that you have, money and you're on the island and you don't like the way that they look, they can't get a food truck park there anyways. And this idea that, well, we should maybe let it on the island as long as there's no neighbors that complain, that's a pipe dream. So let's deal in reality. And I would really like to have a discussion about 11A. And once again, if somebody can give me a compelling reason, I'm all for it. But if it's simply the tradition of the island's better than the rest of the city, then no. So I'm open for the discussion.
Mike?
Yeah, I had a few questions, comments. I noticed we did get the 250-foot buffer between any other food truck or existing restaurants in there to help protect existing restaurants. Number 9, it says due to the nature of the distilleries and breweries, to allow it. But what if a brewery or distillery was on Old 41? Would that allow the food truck, or does the no food trucks on Old 41 supersede that?
Well, currently the areas where they're permitted are in that innovation zone, which was where they are permitted. So the two should work together. If we're looking to expand both of those, we can work with that. That's not an issue.
So breweries and distilleries are only zoned there? They can't go anywhere else on Old 41 or Hickory Island or?
Little Hickory, that's correct. In terms of Old 41, I don't think there are any other locations. I think that it's basically that innovation zone.
Yeah, okay. But if that were to open up, if we change zoning to allow breweries elsewhere, which would take precedence, the no food trucks on Old 41 or the?
That would be one of the things that you would probably have to let us know which one you wanted preference on. Because it can go either way depending upon your discussion.
Okay. Then right there, also advertising signs can be on the food truck, but they can't have additional signage installed. Does that prohibit like an A-frame sign, like if they had a menu board that they could set out off the truck, like on the property somewhere? Or is that just prohibiting, like putting an A-frame sign saying, hey, turn here for a food truck?
It would prohibit both the way it's currently written.
So they couldn't have a separate menu board?
Correct. It would have to be something that was on the truck itself or visible once you're at the ordering window at the truck. There are 2 or 3 prohibitions that came from doing the simple Google search, food truck disasters. And one of them was not to permit them in old gas stations, and there are plenty of pictures that shows you why not to do that. Another one was signs and how they were regulated or not regulated, and where they were placed and how they were used. And there are just as many examples of someone using one appropriately and actually adding to the convenience and efficiency of their business as there are putting them in places that actually cause true safety concerns. And as opposed to looking to get too detailed into something that we would only be guessing at this point, the prohibition was the step that we took. If council wants to amend that where A-frame signs of a certain size can be used, we would obviously be willing to work with that. But that's the reason why that one prohibition is already included.
Okay, and actually I had a question on the gas station. What if somebody purchased a convenience store or a gas station and wanted to redo it to turn it into like a food truck park?
The issue came from using canopies that were meant for the gas station into food truck weather protection or canopies, and it really did start to become an unattractive site. If someone wants to remove the gas station functions or remove the canopies and operate the site without those, obviously the conditions that would prohibit that would no longer be in place. And I wouldn't look at this section applying to them, because you wouldn't be using the gas station in its former condition into a different
So
use.
that's something that could be done if somebody wanted to redevelop a gas station or convenience store when they came in
Correct.
to do it. You'd permit that if they took down the canopy and.
It's if one day it's a gas station, next day the gas station goes out of business, and then the following day with no changes to the site, someone opens up a food truck location. That's where the issues tend to come from.
Okay, so redevelopment would be fine on that.
Correct.
And it was brought up about sunsetting, but what about if somebody had permitted locations and they weren't using them, but a neighboring business within the 250 feet wanted to use it? Is there a way to trigger something for, use it or lose it?
There is a way to do it. Right now, you are correct. There is not a process in place. The permitted location, first come, first serve, and you need to be 250 feet away from that first prohibited or first permitted location. If you would like to look at how we would handle unused locations, I would simply state, let's wait a little bit of time, assuming this is passed, to see what the issues truly are, so we don't just throw darts at a board. Because if this is going to be a problem that we fix, I at least want to know what the problem is. And while I can imagine what it could be, that's definitely not the limit of what we could be facing.
Okay. It was also brought up about a resident wanting to have a food truck at a party or something. That could currently be handled under special events, correct?
Only if the event was a certain size. At this point, I don't know if it's necessary for them to contact us. If you're going to bring an ice cream truck out for your kid's birthday party, to be honest, I don't want to know.
Okay. Going down to the park model, there is a stipulation in there for no park within 250 feet of another park.
Correct.
But we don't have that stipulation on restaurants right now. I know we do on fast food restaurants on 41. What's the spacing there, and why would we want to
The 250 feet is the separation requirement we've used for basically food truck to food truck park to food truck park, and also food truck away from restaurants. So we use that exact same setback for all of those separation requirements.
But if I was opening a brick and mortar restaurant, I'd be allowed to open a brick and mortar restaurant next to another brick and mortar restaurant.
Except in our overlays where we have, if it's like a drive-through.
Well, and that's what I was asking about on
we
on
have
41.
some
What's
regulations,
the distance that we have for that?
For
The
it's 500
fast food
feet.
places on 500
I think it's
feet?
500 feet.
Okay, so at least it's less than that. We did that one, and so the food truck park being treated as like an outdoor restaurant, why would we preclude that from Old 41 overlay district?
For the same reason we were looking at precluding the trucks themselves. But they're currently prohibited from that area. It was a very similar discussion as to the Little Hickory Island. So there's not really a lot of emotional attachment to whether they're there or not, but I know that there's been some discussion on some of the existing restaurants that are there and maybe providing a little bit of protection, at least for a period of time.
Yeah, and I'm fine with the 250 feet between
Mhm.
them to help with the existing restaurants. But I just don't see, if we're gonna treat it as an outdoor restaurant, why would we preclude it from being downtown? Because places like Celebration Park are a draw and help bring people to an area. So that would help bring more people to downtown.
I would feel more comfortable with a park than I would a simple truck.
Oh
simply
yeah, I don't
because-
wanna do the individual trucks, but as a park, I think we should
Only
scrap
because
that.
the park would be presented to you for your approval. So
As
it
a
would be
special exception anyway.
Correct.
So even with this language in here, because it's a special exception, we could still override it?
You could. It would be easier if you wanted to simply override it to remove the separation requirement, because if it's something that the council's not interested in maintaining, there's no reason to keep it in there as a prohibition.
Well, not the separation, but banning parks from Old 41.
If the council's looking to allow them in that area, or at least entertain an application in that area, I would say to remove the prohibition and simply look at any standards or conditions you'd want in place or for a potential park to meet before they come to you for approval. Because once you do that, it's the minimum standard that somebody has to meet for approval. And you want to make sure that that minimum standard is something that you're very happy to live with.
Yeah, so I'd feel better about getting rid of the downtown prohibition on the parks, but not the individual sites.
Okay, and I don't know if the rest of the council is interested. I would simply
I don't
want-
agree with that. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
You know, we're working on a new zoning scheme down there where we're focusing on aesthetics and the way it works in an urban environment. I think this is one reason why we don't want them down there, you know, because this is going to be our most intense density area. I think we should stick with the way we are. We could at least try it out initially and not, you know, I don't agree with changing 11 or the food park.
Well, Jesse, did you have something?
No, I just, I'd like to make a motion that we scrap 11A and vote as is on the rest of the motion.
We don't have
That's
a motion on the
one that
floor.
That takes it, it opens it up to everybody.
We have to, no, you have to, that has to be an amendment, so somebody has to vote the
Okay.
motion first.
Okay,
I
so-
move the package as presented.
There's been a motion, is there a second?
Laura did.
I did, second.
Okay, thank you, Laura.
Now you can
Further
do-
discussion.
Okay,
do
so
the
now I can
amendment.
do, okay, so with that, thank you for that. With that logistical portion over, I would like to remove 11A.
Well, it's actually just 11A is part of the sentence, but it's 11 on the top section, and under parks, it's 9.
And other than that, I'm good with every portion of this.
Is that a second, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Second.
Okay.
So you'd be voting first on the amendment to the original motion, to take out the
Take out
restrictions.
11A. Okay.
And 9.
Is there further discussion?
Right,
Roll
well,
call,
wait,
please.
is there,
Laura?
so, I'm sorry, what page is 11A? What are we talking?
It's the prohibition on Little Hickory Island.
And we want to remove
And
it?
downtown.
And
also.
downtown.
Oh, for both, it would remove the prohibition on Little Hickory Island and the downtown overlay.
Is there public comment before we vote?
Before you take the final vote, yes, you'd have to have public comment.
I think if we're going to do that change, we should give notice to the folks on Hickory Island and in Old Downtown overlay.
Laura, I would agree with you on that.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, it's just.
Because we did
So
not
quite
expect
frankly,
this,
I'm not-
and so
I'm not
we would have
opposed
had
to
comment, believe
tabling
me.
this whole thing right now. I mean, if we can't separate them right now without giving notice, proper notice, I think we should table the whole thing.
I agree.
I'd recommend go ahead and open up the public comment at this point, and then.
Okay, all right, public comment. Members of the public that would like to speak?
Hi,
Hi, Shelley,
Shelley
welcome.
Anderson, thank you. I spoke to Caitlin and Brandon that own the Downtown Coffee and Wine today about this issue. They couldn't be here tonight, but they gave me permission to speak for them. And they're not opposed to food trucks or food truck parks anywhere in Bonita. They're not opposed to it on Old 41. They said the more the merrier. We're doing a great business. We don't think it would be competition for us. It would just bring more people downtown. So that was their opinion. And I also spoke to Sophie, that owns Survey Cafe. She's in France, but we had a chat today. And she is not opposed to it, except she's opposed to it on the downtown overlay area. So I just wanted to pass those two along.
Okay. Thank you very much. Other members of the public?
Shelley, while you're there, isn't it that Sophie's objects because of the character and the ambiance that we want to build down there? It's not competition. It's kind of the quaintness. I mean, she's the Survey Cafe, right? You know, so it goes way back. I don't know. Didn't she indicate
we didn't
that?
talk specifically about that. Probably more when she gets back to town and opens the cafe, but she just said that she doesn't think that, for instance, she doesn't think bamboo property is appropriate for it. And then she said, I really don't think it's appropriate in the, Old 41 corridor. She thinks it's more appropriate on the dog track property or somewhere else on Bonita Beach Road, but not downtown.
Thank you, Shelley.
Sure.
I suppose this covers what we would call in the construction roach coaches that come to a construction site at noontime, and the construction workers buy their food for lunch off of the food truck. Is that a mobile?
No.
No.
That's not one of these, huh?
Called a cart.
Well, I'm glad you're not letting anything on Little Hickory Island, since it's a county road and it's private property. The city owns a couple little parks, but the city doesn't own, it's private property or the state property or Lee County property. I don't see any reason to have vendors on Little Hickory Island. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Other members of the public? Oh, okay, great.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm Anthony
Wait.
Dacos. I own.
So are we going to table this
We're
because
still,
of the
we're still
changes?
taking
Or?
public comment, Laura. Hang
Oh,
tight.
okay, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm Anthony Bacos. I'm the owner of Old 41 Restaurant in Bonita Springs. And just to basically reiterate what Chip said, we're in an industry right now that's pretty much beleaguered. We've had a really difficult time through the COVID situation. Before that, it was the red tide and blue-green algae, which destroyed our season. Before that, it was going all the way back to Hurricane Irma, and before that, it was the BP oil spill. We have an industry here that is seasonal, and we depend on our income for tourism. And we also depend on having a good, I guess, how can I say it, a good environment for tourists. I'm not opposed to food trucks. I come from the Philadelphia area. Food trucks are something you see parked in front of museums and in certain areas with certain permits. Obviously, we're not talking about roach coaches, as was mentioned, but I do think, as the mayor pointed out, it's very important before you do approve something like this that you do get public input and probably put it to a vote, because you are affecting people's backyards and you are affecting people's livelihoods. So I think definitely input from the public would be appropriate, especially if you're going to approve something that was not permitted in their backyard before. So that's my input.
Thank you. And
I'm sorry, I didn't catch his name. What was his name, sir?
Tony Backos.
Anthony Backos from Old 41 Restaurant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the reason just to be clear, the reason I'm in favor of tabling this is because you're telling me, Derek, we can't separate one without the other? Or am I misunderstanding
No,
that?
I mean, technically, this was an advertised meeting. Any change to the ordinance could have been expected. So as far as legal notice, everyone's on public notice. If you require more information, then you have 2 pending motions going. You can, under Robert's rules, motion to table the item while you get additional information. To be compliant with Florida law, I would also request that we just continue the public hearing until October 7th at 5:30 to a time certain, so we don't have to re-advertise and do anything else. But that would give you time to collect additional comments if necessary.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So that would leave both motions pending at the beginning of the hearing.
I'm not clear what you want to separate.
Well, we're talking about removing items, correct?
Well, you have a primary motion, which was to approve the ordinance as drafted. You have a secondary motion to amend that ordinance to take out sections 9, sections 11 of the prohibited areas, Little Hickory for parks and downtown.
But that part doesn't give anybody notice to be here to speak about it.
Well, the whole ordinance is notice. I mean, so rather than forcing the council to make a bunch of votes on either of those items while they're still seeking more additional information, you could move to lay it on the table and continue it till your October 7th meeting and see if additional input or background information satisfies you.
Council, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to table it until October 7th.
Second.
I would say.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to table it. Further discussion. Jesse?
Yeah, for my portion, I have no problem tabling it, but I mean, what I'm gonna want is something from staff that's gonna give me a tangible reason as to why we have a separate policy for what's going on in the island. And I mean, and it can't just, my vote doesn't change if the answer is tradition. So if somebody can research this and give me a reason why we're separating those two portions, I'm all for it. But just as a principle, when we make policy, it's really not fair to carve out certain areas that we decide we like or don't like, or it's okay here, but it's not there, and it's not our job to play God as far as the economy goes. So I'm fine with tabling it, but listen, this is gonna open up 500 emails from the beach that's gonna say, hey, we want this. That's not what I'm looking for as far as input goes. I'm looking for why is the island special from the rest of the city. And if I can get that reason, then I'm fine. Old 41 is kind of caught in the crosshairs on this. I mean, their portion of this, my issue is we continually set policy where we make the island's rules different than the rest of the city. And on principle, look, I'm Middle Bonita. I would love special rules for Middle Bonita, but I don't get it. So I don't know why we're doing it for any other section of the city, as if there's separate portions that aren't under the same rules or different mayors or different council people. So I have no problem changing it, but when we come back and talk about it, I want tangible, actual reasons as to why there's a separation. And if that's not, then I don't see changing my vote. Okay.
Well, it is a residential area. I mean, that's the biggest difference. We don't have any exclusions of it. Like if you have an empty lot in a residential area, you can still have a food truck.
No, I don't think so.
You're really looking at keeping the permitted locations away from residential zoned or used property. The property that would be available out there would generally be the non-residential uses. And if you look at the standards, they're either going to have to locate in areas that are not required parking spaces or other areas that, that are not necessary for ingress or egress or block views of certain things. Generally, in this case, it'd probably be that whatever business was on the property.
Or the beach clubs, I think they're concerned
The
about.
Beach
that.
clubs, I think, are zoned residential in many cases, so they would be prohibited.
Yes, some of them are and some of them aren't. So those that are obviously would not have the same opportunity as those that were not. So there are some unique characteristics that are out there that are not in other portions of the city. And we can identify those when we come back and discuss this again. But the opportunities on Little Hickory would be limited just based upon the nature of that island.
Right, and again, so why are we making policy that protects a situation that doesn't even exist? Because all that does is perpetuate the idea that somehow, for some reason, we need to be giving special exemptions to the island. I mean, I've never once seen a policy that was, hey, you know what, Middle Bonita, you know what, it's gonna be great for Middle Bonita if we do this, and everybody else is just gonna say, oh, it's okay, they're in the middle of the city, it's fine. No. The idea that it's over by the ocean and they get mad and they send a lot of emails, so we should do it, no. I don't, that to me is the wrong way to go. Tangible reasons to why, or it's equal for everybody.
Okay, so there's been a motion to table and a second. Is there further discussion?
Was there a second? I didn't.
Yes, Amy made the second.
Okay. Yeah.
And Laura, did you have other comments?
No, if there wasn't a second, I'd give it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Chris made the motion and Amy gave it a second, so we're in good shape. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
No.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
No. Okay, thank you. We are now going to move on to item B. Derek.
Okay. Item B is actually,
Or excuse me,
No, item
city attorney's items,
CA.
excuse me.
I'm actually going to turn this one over to Ms. Sanseverino.
Oh, okay, great.
Good evening. This is an emergency resolution relating to the city's rental permit program. Our rental program requires a permit every 3 years, and part of obtaining the permit is an internal and external inspection. Since the city's been operating under no contact operations since the pandemic, the inspectors have not been able to enter the homes to do the internal component. So this ordinance is intended to suspend fines related to the abatement of those violations until such time that we can conduct an internal inspection.
Okay. Council, what's your pleasure?
Sounds sensible to me. So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve in a second. Is there further comment? Roll call, please.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Now item B, Derek.
All right, the next item is not a first reading. It is a glitch bill that's being proposed by Community Development to correct an issue with respect to certain lot characteristics in the mobile home conventional district. So I'll ask Mr. Dolmar to introduce
What was that
it.
term you used?
Glitch bill?
Glitch.
What has happened was a number of years ago,
You
City
didn't ask us
Council.
to bring this, in other words.
Yeah. But we realized that there was something that would be nice to have in there after we've done something. So a number of years ago, City Council authorized the construction of single-family homes and mobile home districts. And as a result, several people have taken advantage of that opportunity to construct single-family homes where previously a mobile home is located or permitted. Since that time, we've realized that there was never a standard for a single-family house to meet the setback of a single-family district. And because those setbacks tend to be a little bit larger than those of mobile homes, there's been a little bit of a compatibility issue. With some property owners, we've been able to get some voluntary compliance and going with those larger setbacks to provide that compatibility and not having a single-family house right up on the porch of a mobile home. In some cases, we haven't. And so the reason why you're seeing this before you is so that we could have a unified standard for that redevelopment.
So if you agree with the concept, we will move it to first reading, and send it to the local planning agency.
So moved.
Second.
So moved in a second, okay. There's been a motion to move it forward, and a second. Is there further discussion?
I just have a quick question.
Yes, Amy.
Is the clarification the underlined sections,
Yes,
like two statements?
Yes,
Okay,
and that
thank you.
references a section of the Land Development Code where it
Right.
talks about
That's what I
residential
thought.
setbacks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye. Item C.
All right, this is, as you discussed at your last council meeting, this is the updated contract for Ms. Hunter as city manager with the corrected terms. The contract is otherwise the same as her last contract.
Okay,
And it
motion to
extends for
approve.
1 year.
Second.
So moved.
There's been a motion to approve in a second. Council, is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Congratulations once again. And like I said before, keep an eye on that masked man next to you. He's been kind of quiet tonight, but that's okay. Derek, do you have anything else?
I have nothing additional.
Okay. City managers items, Arlene.
Yes, we did want to remind the public that this Friday, September 18th, is the deadline for applications for businesses Rehire program and the individual assistance program from Lee Cares. Should you need any assistance with that, please contact the 239 Lee Cares. Of course, at City Hall, we're happy to direct anyone to the appropriate folks at Lee County as well. We're continuing to work with Lee County in regards to the contract that you had on this evening, where we're hoping to have some additional COVID expenses reimbursed to the city as well. Additionally, the Finance Department has applied through FEMA, which I understand is a 75% reimbursement on any of the expenses we have. We're going to determine which expenses would be the most appropriate funding source with the largest reimbursement. We're looking at approximately 100% reimbursement from the Lee Cares program, so we're going to balance out the two requests. Obviously not requesting the same items from both FEMA and Lee County together. Additionally, I did want to give you an update that the city's Public Works Department is daily reviewing the city's stormwater systems. They have been out taking photographs, videotaping certain systems, and we are reporting back and keeping a log. We are reporting all of this to the city's consultants as well, any findings that we have. We do know there has been an uptick in both correspondence to City Council as well as all of staff regarding recent rain events. So we're continuing to monitor those and document them as best we can through the process. And then last, I just wanted to give an update that we have been reaching out to some folks about where we could host our retreat. Unfortunately, some of the locations we look at are not actually renting facilities or hosting events right now. We checked at some private folks. But I did reach out to Susan Bridges with the Art League, and they are more than happy to host us. And they would waive their rental fee, but we would, I think it would be appropriate for us to give them a $100 cleaning fee. And they would allow us to have food there as well. I had looked at some Mondays in October, and they are available at their facility. And this would be one of the auditoriums off of Bonita Beach Road. It is ADA accessible, and the public could be there. We would not be, in talking with the city attorney, we would not be looking for public comment at the retreat. It's an opportunity for dialogue amongst council and presentations from staff. But they were looking at October 5th was available, that's a Monday, and October 26th is available, and that's also a Monday. If there's any other dates, I can bring that back to Ms. Bridges, but I know that council in scheduling meetings off of a Wednesday, Monday was usually more efficient for folks, so.
Right. Like I said in our conversation, Arlene, I'm all in favor of a retreat. My only question would be, where it's difficult to find space, a month and a half from now, there's 4 seats up on this dais right now. A month and a half from now, this council could look very similar or it could look very different. So on the timing, I don't know, I just want to throw that out there. Do we want to have an all-day retreat? Sure, not a problem. But it might kind of be better off maybe in November. with the new council. I don't know what everybody's thoughts are on that.
I agree.
Well, I've been thinking both, I think I can think both ways,
Right,
because
sure.
let's say we get a lot of new people on, all right? I think that it'd be a lot harder to have a retreat then, because they would be used to any of the processes and procedures, whereas with having a retreat with more experienced council people, talking about processing more than anything else, not so much somewhat focusing on issues, but just reiterating the things that are already done, we could sort of set the path for the new council so the transition will be easier. And maybe we need 2 retreats. If we have a lot of new people, then we'd probably have to have another one. So I can go both ways. I think it's good for us to have a conversation, which we haven't had in a long time anyway. But it's what the rest of the council.
Jesse, what are your thoughts? Thank you, Amy.
I'm open to moving it till after the election. Only, but I understand, what we're trying to accomplish. But I mean, you said it really well. There's going to be 4 different faces on here, and I know everybody in all the races, and we're all drastically different as regards to personality. And a lot of this, initially when we discussed it, was, how are we going to work together in a way where we have a little bit more harmony up here on the board without as much head clashing. If we go and we do this event and we have staff presentations and we have the public there, honestly, how much of that are we actually going to get done? And that to me probably says not a lot. So if there's not a lot that's going to be done, I don't see the point putting the time in until after the election and we know who the next 4 years look like.
Thank you, Jesse.
But I'm open to it if you want.
I always think it's better to at least start and then figure out what you do after the election. I'm going to bring, well, I guess I can bring it up here. One of the things that I wanted to talk about later on under mayor and council reports was, for example, what's the problem with the zoning board, and what do we do we now have 2 resignations this week. The zoning board's down to 4. Is that something that we as a council sort of need to get down to the root cause of, and try to figure out where we go from here? Why, are they, what's their role and function really in the city government? So, I think there's some things that Amy's correct, that, there needs to be some experience on council to deal with. Not that I'm that experienced, I've been around 6 months, so is Jesse, but at least we have more of it than somebody new coming on, and maybe things like that where we're talking about issues, it would pay to go ahead and have a discussion in October.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you missed me.
Laura, yes, I'm sorry.
I agree with Amy that if we do it, and especially if we consider November is going to get busier and busier and busier and harder to find a location and time for all of us, that we do focus on the processes and policies. And I didn't know we had headbutting, but just to work it through. And both Jesse and Chris have experienced some frustration, and they can share that with all of us, and back and forth. And so I do believe that we should have it in October.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Mike?
I could go either way.
Yeah, thank you. Fred?
Well, I could go either way, but in a way I think it'd be better to wait till after November.
Right. And I'm the same way. I could go either way, but I really think it's better in November with the new council. It's a lot of hours invested, not that that's a problem, of our time. A lot of hours of staff time, and then a month later, you're gonna have new faces up here. So,
I think staff,
or potentially new
there
faces.
needs
You'll
to
have at
be
least one new face,
processes
I know
worked
that.
out.
I'm sorry, Laura?
Well, I think there needs to be processes worked out and boundaries established that would actually help staff. That we delineate job responsibilities. And I think it would be helpful for us to dialogue with staff about their issues as well.
Thank you very much. Council, anything else? Because Fred, I'm counting you as November. Mike?
November's fine.
November, so 3 Novembers down here. Chris?
October.
October. Jesse?
November.
November. Amy?
October.
Okay, so I'm seeing 4 Novembers and 3 Octobers.
So
I guess
Fred, I thought
November.
you were either
and
way.
Laura,
you
yeah,
know?
and Laura, I'm sorry, I'm counting you as October.
Thank you.
So, yes, absolutely. So, no, I think it's November. So maybe we could look for a location and some dates then.
Okay.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
I wonder if we could, we don't need to have a special meeting for it, but we do follow up on Chris Curry's comment in regard to the zoning board.
Well, I think he's gonna, sure, I'm gonna bring that up during councilmember items. Chris, is
Yeah.
that a good time?
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
absolutely. Arlene or Matt, do you have anything else under
No, nothing further.
city manager's items? Okay.
Quick question on
Yes.
the zoning, the vacancies we have, how much time do we have to allow before we can appoint?
There's no requirement. The clerk does have the open advertisement now, and I do believe we're in receipt of 2 current applications at this time.
Okay. Council, what's your thought on how long we want to leave it open? 2 weeks? I mean, I'm not sure.
The shorter the better, just because they have so many I mean.
When's the next scheduled meeting? Maybe
Our next city council meeting is October 7th. When is the next scheduled meeting of the zoning board?
second week of October? Not going to make a difference?
Well,
In terms of whether we have new members the second week of October, Derek?
You might be able to appoint some new members on the 7th if you want.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be up to
Does the 7th
speed.
sound reasonable for everybody? We'll make a
And we currently have a
decision
quorum.
on new members on the 7th? Does that sound good to everybody?
Is it possible to punt? I don't want to necessarily punt zoning because I know that Derek will go crazy. But here's my: if we're losing 3, and those 3 are going to be a large chunk of that group. I mean, we've had the packets; they're this thick. I mean, I'm worried that we might be putting them in a position on things they have to vote for that I don't know if they would have ample time to be caught up appropriately. But I mean, I'm okay with.
Well,
I just
I
want to
mean,
make sure they have time. Because that's a
wouldn't
lot.
someone who's running for a board be committed to doing the research and their homework, basically? I mean, when you came on council, Jesse, you got caught up, right?
Right. But I think we could agree that there's not the same level of homework done by every elected official.
Well, then we shouldn't elect them to the board.
If I might add, we may, I think that it's something I was already working on for the zoning board. Going forward, regardless of the membership, if we retain a zoning board, we should engage a little more training. I've been developing new procedures that I was going to lay out to the zoning board to help them steer the process. I would also respectfully request that we look at our standards again, because one of the issues that comes up fairly repeatedly at the zoning board is that our standards for rezonings, for special exceptions, for variances, because we have overlays, we have other provisions, there are multiple portions of the code. And so it's not always easily digestible for the zoning board to understand what their role is, what the criteria they're supposed to consider, and even, quite frankly, looking at those criteria, and it's not unique to Bonita, those criteria are often very vague. Tightening them up, working with the zoning board, working with the council to come up with something that's a little clearer and make it easier for everyone through the process. So I think that even if we fill the board back up, I think it's going to be an evolving process either way. So they're going to learn something coming on, but I think that you've already given me direction to start working on those procedures, so I think they're going to be learning new issues anyway.
Okay. Well, I would be happy if the council's okay, making some decisions on some new appointments on our next meeting, October 7th. Right, that basically gives another.
Yeah, and I think we also need to choose a chair for the zoning board, because we have lost Mr. Kurlander. We don't have a chair currently for the zoning board.
We lost the vice chair.
And the vice chair as well.
Sure. And I forget.
And thank you, Derek, for bringing that up, because I agree we need to talk about the zoning criteria. But I'll wait until council matters.
No, thank you, Laura. And so, and I forget, although I make the appointments, but
you make
it's
the
approved
appointment.
by council.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's all of us making the decision in my mind. All right, I'll make the picks, but then it's up to us to approve the picks. So we'll and I look at it as a team decision, honestly. So, okay. Looking, October 7th it is. We'll get some new members.
Do we have a list of candidates?
Who has submitted their names so far? I think we had 2 names so far.
Mr. Galloway and Mr. Cobb.
Sam Galloway? Tell me Sam Galloway put his name in. Which Mr.?
I think his name is Bruce Galloway.
Bruce Galloway, okay.
And Mr. Gramble, who you recently appointed to the local planning agency, but is willing to step up to the zoning board.
Dynamite. So 2 so far. Okay. We'll see. Okay. Great. Any other items?
No, sir.
No? Okay, we're good. All right, let's start with mayor and council items. Amy?
Just a quick thank you to the Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue for putting on the 9/11 program, which I thought was very moving, and I appreciate them remembering that event in our history, and they did a good job. So I was moved both by the morning program, and then when I went back in the evening with my husband and some friends to see the lights, so I thought it was really good. So I appreciate all that effort that went into that. And I do want to again call out, I'm sorry, the masked man at the end of the table, Matt Feeney, for again bringing honor to the city, what he's recognized out of the South Florida League of Cities for the contribution to environmental excellence. So again, we got recognized as a city because of the effort that he made, so I appreciate that too. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jesse?
I just want to thank staff and council. Being part of this budget process is completely different on this side, and it was, I thank you guys for your contributions to the conversations that have helped to formulate some of my thoughts on it. But, you know, the highlights for me, you know, getting the water steward position is great. Phase 2 for the bioreactor, wonderful. More police on the streets of Lee County is another great thing, and that was all in this last budget. So for me, thank you to staff and council for going through that with me. Very exciting. Hopefully it won't be the first or last. And I don't know logistically how we work on this, if it needs to be an item or not, but I think at some juncture we need to discuss what's going on at the Wonder Gardens as a group.
Right.
So I don't, once again, look, I have no horse in the race one way or the other, but there's been enough stuff brought to my attention that makes me want to holistically look at it. I want to see, you know, what's true, what's not true, look under the hood, and then also understand in legal terms what our role is with that organization. So just kind of getting our hands around that, I think, is a good move, and we just need to figure that out.
We've already provided notice last year to the Wonder Gardens that we were considering not renewing their lease that was triggered in order to get us to re-up the operational agreement. A draft of the operations agreement has been completed. I'm going to be sending it over to them this week. So we're planning to put that on for the October agenda. So there should be representatives here from the Wonder Gardens to talk about it. And what I can tell you about the new operating agreement is that it is not a lease anymore. It is, you know, it's a city-owned facility. It is, there would be a vendor operating the facility on our behalf. So the last operating agreement was a little confusing because it was unclear where the ownership was, what they owned, what we owned, who was responsible for what the plans were for going forward for capital improvements, and what kind of approvals need to be got from the city. So I've made that much simpler, and going forward it will be a more clear cut. The animals, the facilities, everything are owned by the city. Major improvements or major donors that may have conditions. That was an issue that I had concerns about. If there are major donations given to the Everglades Wonder Gardens, technically they're supposed to come to us. I have no evidence that they've ever done that, and we don't want situations where our facility has strings attached to it without us being aware. So just a little more clear-cut relationship.
Prior to having an actual presentation from the Wonder Gardens, what I mean is I would like us to discuss some of the information we got on email from the former CEO, where he raised issues about their financial sustainability due to recent economic decisions that they made against his will. And apparently, there was, I don't want to get in the middle of it because I don't know the board over there and I don't know the former CEO. But I do know, based on the things that were sent to us, if some of those things are accurate, it's things that need to be looked into. Some of the solutions that he gave, I don't think are probably the way that I would go. Like separating the nonprofits to me is not a good way to do it. He started off the email saying that, for 4 years in a row.
Who's he? I'm sorry, Jesse.
No, we're not,
Who's he?
listen, we're not gonna interrupt. We're gonna give everybody a chance
Okay,
to speak.
but
Lori,
who's
you will
he?
have your turn.
No,
Jesse,
I
you
just want
have
to
the
know
floor.
who he's talking.
We're talking about Thomas Hecker, Laura.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, with the things that Thomas brought to our attention collectively, if some of those things
Jesse,
are,
speak into the microphone. Laura must be having a hard time.
if some of those things are true, it could be potentially problematic, but it's only problematic depending on what our role and oversight is with the Wonder Garden. So, in my eyes, some of the things that he said, but it's his side, and he's also the one who left. So, there's always three sides to a story. I haven't heard the Wonder Gardens version yet, other than the press release they put out that says everything's wonderful. So, with that being said, I have one side that's saying it's a mess, I have one side saying it's wonderful, and we all know the truth is somewhere in the middle. So prior to sitting down with them and letting them say how great things are or how horrible things are, I would like to kind of get an idea of what our role is, and if some of those things are true, what we as a board then are supposed to do about those things, if we have any responsibility or role there at all. But it's such an important part of our downtown, and if some of these things, I don't know Thomas, so I'm not going to bat for the guy, but I'm telling you that the things that he said, if they're true, we need to look at them.
Right.
So I don't know. That's just my thought.
Amy, thank you, Jesse.
I just want to say, I want you to reassure Jesse that I'm sure many of us are having conversations with the staff in this regard. And I think there is a way that we could get a handle of it. I too don't want to get in the middle of he said, she said, they're good, we're bad, all that. That's not our role. It should be, because we're not the operating entity there. But I do think that there are some financial reporting issues that we had asked for that we haven't gotten. And that's the way I want to approach this, because what I'm concerned about, it was the concern that I had in 2016 when I first got on the council. It's really got a deja vu, Jesse, and I know just how you feel when they ran into trouble. And as a new council person, I felt I was put in a really bad situation because I didn't know what to do about it. But we had private meetings with them. We got the financial details, and we came out with what we thought was a solution. But I do not want that entity to be in a position where it's going to be in a financial shutdown in the spring, which is what was alluded to that. That's what I want to get addressed, and I think that we are within our responsibility and authority to ask for that. And that's the kinds of things that I've spoken to Arlene about. So I think something is coming out of this, and we don't have to say, is that person right or is that person right? We just need to approach this from making sure that this is not only a viable entity, but a thriving entity. And that's where I think we're going to go with this. And I don't know if we can get it through this agreement that Derek's working on, but preliminary to do that, I want to get the answers. And I'm sure, I just assume that the rest of you are talking the same way.
Before the agreement is done.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. I'd just like clarity
Yeah.
before we agree
Exactly.
to
We
extend
need,
anything.
that's where we have to step forward and ask for some
Well, why don't we just go around? Chris, did you want to make a comment on this? We're not, we'll go back to everybody to give their full reports, but why don't we all get a chance to weigh in here?
Mr. Meyer, I'm District 3.
I know, I keep look, Chris is sitting in your seat, Laura, I'm sorry. Laura, you're up, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I want to say, actually, I'm dittoing Amy on every point she made. The 9/11 memorial that the fire department put on was moving.
No, Lauren,
and-
I'm sorry. We're just talking about the Wonder Gardens right now, and then we're gonna go back to every member
Oh,
before
okay,
we.
well, I thought we were on council.
We
oh,
are,
Wonder
but do you have a
Gardens?
comment on the Wonder Gardens?
Well, yes, well, since I'm the liaison assigned to work with Wonder Gardens with Derek, I'm pretty much on top of the how we're switching and fine-tuning the agreement, which I think council will be very happy with. Derek has done a great job, but I agree with Amy. I don't want to get into he said, she said, and it's almost a micromanagement. We just need to find out, if they're a structurally sound, organized group that is going to operate the Wonder Gardens. And if not, we find somebody else.
Thank you.
But we're coming back to.
Yes, and just.
Just the Wonder Gardens. So what is it we're talking about, the Wonder Gardens?
We're just getting everybody's opinion on how to move forward for the moment. Chris?
Well, I think we pretty well beat it to death,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, very good. But I know, Fred, you had something.
Yeah.
Mike's good. Fred, you're
Oh,
up.
okay.
On the Wonder Gardens.
Number one, I don't think, we don't want to get into a he said, I said. We don't want to get into this stuff in this room. I think what should happen is we all give our concerns to Arlene, let her and get to the bottom of this and tell us one-on-one. Because I am concerned about some of what I've heard, but I don't know that it's factually accurate. But if it's accurate, I think we have a real basis of, we should be concerned. But I don't know if it's true. So way to get it is let Arlene get into it with maybe Ann, and they can come back and talk to us individually. And then if we need to, we can talk about it in here or have them in or whatever.
I appreciate that, Fred, and I would agree with a lot of more of what Amy said, and Laura, and probably some others. But, if this was a private enterprise funded solely by private dollars, I think I would agree with your approach, Fred. But this is supported largely by taxpayers' dollars, so I think it absolutely should be in this room and let the people that are paying a lot of the bills over there hear what's going on over there. Not to get into the he said, she said, but out in the light for everybody to listen if they choose to or not choose to. So that's my thought.
Great, that's good.
Okay.
I like it.
Now, Jesse, I think, Amy, I'll just go back. Do you have any more comments on anything? Okay,
no.
Jesse, did that?
No, I just wanted the Wonder Garden, just start the conversation, that was.
Okay, great. Laura?
Okay, yes. So I agree with Amy that the 9/11 Fire Department memorial was beautiful, and it's fabulous that we continue to remember that tragedy and the attack on our country. And kudos to Matt. For tomorrow morning, he gets the Environmental Stewardship Award. Yay, Matt. And to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. If you recall, we needed to wear masks so that the curve would come down, that the figures of infected people would drop. And the governor reported, just yesterday that it's the lowest hospitalization rate since June. The statewide positive tests are down under 7% for 12 days in a row. Overall positive rates dropped to almost 4%. So if we stop wearing masks, people will stop being so afraid to go out and shop. And masks are actually more detrimental. Some doctors argue it, but definitely for little kids, man. Imagine they're gonna take their masks off, hold them when they go to the bathroom, flush the toilet, and then put the mask back on. I mean, talk about like aerial infection, but again, stop wearing masks. It's okay. That's my speech.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Chris?
I about forgot what I was thinking about.
Zoning, I think, maybe, right? Yeah. But I think maybe we covered that.
Yeah.
Lost your train of thought.
Are you a senior citizen?
Oh, wait, Mr. Mayor, I forgot to come back to a point Derek was making.
Okay.
With the zoning board, we had an issue where Councilman Forbes brought up a green sheet to put in regulations and requirements that would be required from applicants for projects. And we all said, we don't need to make it so regimented. It was too much to sort of absorb that night. And we said, because if somebody didn't turn in drawings, they would be denied by zoning and the board would support it. And all of us agreed to that. At least that was my recollection. And yesterday at zoning, we had an applicant who also pointed out he's running for an elected office, not turn in drawings. The chairman was aghast, saying, do you want to just pull this? The city, if you look through there are memos saying, we can only remind you 3 times that your application is insufficient. Unless you put in writing, we can remind you again. And the applicant did not. The applicant did not put in any renderings of what this major change is going to be. It's a great, I mean, and I don't know why, because I think it's like a push of a button, but, and it's a wonderful idea. And he says he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart to comply with the vision of the Bonita Beach farm, the vision of Bonita Beach Road. And that may or may not be true, but if we start making exceptions to the rule, then we don't have rules. And it is going to be absolutely outrageous if we approve something that's an exception, no renderings needed. You just take my word, it's going to look like this and everything will be okay. And there's no real issue and I don't have to show you what I'm going to do. Well, that's just not how it works in my book, in terms of how we have viewed zoning. And so I do believe we're going to have to do something formal to structure zoning, because we are going to be sued if we then say to someone who doesn't turn in drawings, who isn't already has, but even if they have an established entity, this is a major change that he's setting. I mean, setbacks being altered, landscaping being altered, and there's just take my word, it'll all be okay, is not something that I believe that council can approve. But because if we do, then we have to do it for everybody else. Because if you have a rule, no exceptions. So it was very bizarre yesterday.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. Chris.
Just wanted to report about Habitat for Humanity. Habitat is an organization that a lot of people in Bonita Bay support. They got a new project going on, starting at Alabama and Bonita Beach Road, and they approached Bonita Bay and Bonita Bay Club about informing our maintenance people of these projects, of the project on Alabama. I don't know if they did it similarly for what's going on Rosemary, off Rosemary. But I have picked up over the last year or so that there's been tension with respect to how some of these projects are carried out with meeting code compliance in the city, safety concerns about lack of sidewalks and so forth. So we conducted some due diligence with them. And as a result, they've got a new executive director, Becky Lewis. We have received confirmation that they will respond in a positive way to any changes in the code, work with city on the code, do what's necessary to be a good partner in Bonita Springs with respect to affordable housing. So I'm hoping that over a period of time that they can get together with John and Matt and Arlene, and so whatever the issues were in the past can sort of the air be cleared and have a very positive relationship going forward. So I've informed Matt and John and Arlene of this, and so we'll see what happens, because I'm looking for them to make Habitat to make the call and set up the meeting. I said I'd be glad to sit in on it, but I think that's something that needs to be resolved.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Mike?
I'm good.
Okay, Fred?
I just want to make everybody aware of something that I found was going on, at least in our city, probably maybe the Lee County, maybe all the counties. A resident of Hunters Ridge called me and he said, "Why is the Board of Elections asking me to re-register?" He says, "I've been a registered voter for 15 years and all that." And I said, "Well, the only explanation I could give you is they do want you to update your signature periodically because somehow time changes your signature." But I said I would check into it. I called Tommy Doyle. He answered the phone, got him full ring. And he said, no, they had not sent out these forms that looked like it came from them. And they require in this form that was not sent out by the Board of Elections that you have to give your voter ID, your driver's license number, and you have to give you your social and a good signature. It's even got a mailing address, Board of Elections, to a P.O. box back in Fort Myers. So after having checked it out, I did go ahead and turn it in to the undersheriff, also Mayor Fox. They're looking into it, but it looks clearly like somebody is either attempting to, what they call it, harvest ballots, or possibly steal your identity, or both. And those, I found out that there's other people in the community that have received them too, not Hunters Ridge, other communities. So just be aware, you may get questioned by one of your constituents, and it didn't come from the Board of Elections.
Could we get an alert out?
Laura has been coordinating that with the Lee County Sheriff's
Yeah,
Office.
can we post it on our website?
Typically what we do is the Lee County Sheriff's Office creates the document of how they would like things reported to Crime Stoppers and such, and then they share that information with us, and then we're happy to send it out on all of our alerts as well.
Thanks.
Good job, Fred. Yeah.
Thank
very
you.
Good. You're all set? Okay, obviously it was great to participate. I mean, very tragically, of course, but very special service for the September 11th service, and certainly to read the proclamation on behalf of the city. I know several of us were there, and several of the members in the audience were there, so tough day. But the fire department did an amazing job, and everybody that participated in that. So thank you very much. I was at an event last night for the Hispanic Heritage Month. It was wonderful. Andres Paz, who many of you may know, and he is on the outreach committee, and did a fabulous job. Had mariachi, and some folks were there. It was wonderful. So I have asked, Lee County did a proclamation yesterday at their meeting for Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from September 15th to October 15th. So at our next meeting, I've asked our team to put that together. So I would like to obviously invite the entire outreach committee. I'd like to invite the appropriate people from the sheriff's office, and maybe just kind of get the word out. If there are other ideas of who we might want to have here for that recognition, that would be wonderful. Laura, I think what you're, in fact, before I get to that, I did have a meeting with Commissioner Sandelli and Matt and Arlene and John Domer and the folks that are interested in looking at the old library for some senior services there. So we're gonna be getting some more information and some more details. But Arlene, do you want to give a recap on that, please?
Yes.
To give it justice.
Yes,
Hey, can you touch on
you.
the ladies too? Can you touch on our line dancing ladies?
Yes, I
also?
can. Yes,
All
I
right,
can.
ladies.
So we had a meeting at the request of our former mayor, Jay Aaron, with an idea of understanding is there a possibility that the Lee County Library site could be turned over to the city of Bonita Springs, and them, in essence, the group that's been working for the senior center have some sort of then contract with the city of Bonita Springs. The first step in talking with Commissioner Sandeli's office, as well as Lee County staff, has been there. They have been working on some due diligence and some analysis of the building, the fact that it's in the flood zone, what flood damage they received during Irma, what repairs need to be made, ADA assessments. So they are going to be giving us all of that due diligence for the city staff, from Matt, myself, and John to review first, to understand the financial feasibility of the actual building and what makes it accessible. It is closed currently by Lee County because of these certain reasons of improvements that have to be made. We'd also have to look at the value of the building as opposed to the improvements needed. And a second step of that would be, should you want to entertain some sort of agreement with the folks interested in the senior center, that would be a separate step in that. So I think there's some analysis that needs to be done by your staff to determine the financial feasibility of the building, the value of the building, what type of CIPs we'd be discussing, what needs, additional needs we may have to discuss as well for the facility, and bring that back to you in some sort of report. But the Lee County staff was more than willing to assist us in any extra needs we have. John did go over the zoning requirements for that parcel, which does make it part of the recreational campus. So should Lee County in the future pursue some sort of request for proposal or surplus of the property, eventually that would have required some rezoning of it in the future. It was asked if the proposed use as a senior center fit the criteria, and it does. There would be some restrictions that we'd work through at a council level, but those were options. Also, it would be completely appropriate for other governmental use or other recreational facilities. So I think that staff needs a little bit more information, but the conversation was opened by Commissioner Sandeli to have us as the city first do an analysis, have the council have a thorough thought of this is an interest to us of the facility, and then he would bring that back to the county commissioners for their discussion on the property. At this time, there was no discussion that there would be a cost associated with having the city to have the property, but that's a continuing conversation that needs to happen.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And then the last item that I have, and I'll get through this as quick as I can, but it's important that folks understand it and hear it. And it's some information about Bonita Bay, and it's public record, so you can certainly research it if you want to see it. But a quick quote, it says, "I do care a great deal about the environment, but my real work and my greatest challenge is trying to overcome deceits that end up jeopardizing public health and safety," from none other than Aaron Bronkovich. So this was a dialogue that started with the Bonita Bay Community Association and myself in June. And I've got a lot of dates here that I can go through, but in the interest of time, just let you know that on June 17th, I took a water sample. Florida Gulf Coast University tested it. It confirmed that it tested positive for blue-green algae, and that's a lake that empties into the Imperial River. We did have a meeting with the president. It was a Zoom. It was a conference call with the president of the Bonita Bay Community Association. We had a good discussion. A chemical company came, brought some chemicals to the lake, and treated it, and the blue-green algae did indeed go away for about a week to 7 days. The algae came back, so I asked for another meeting or another conversation. Silence, didn't get an answer. And this is all documented by dates, but I don't know that we need to get into that. But June 17th, June 17th, June 29th, June 29th, July 2nd. The back and forth, if anybody wants it, I'll be happy to share it on the dates. So it's an ongoing dialogue since June 17th. Second request to have a meeting, ignored. That's on July 2nd. July 21st, NBC News was in Bonita Bay and did a story covering the blue-green algae in Bonita Bay. Did a story on it, looked for comment from the Bonita Bay Community Association, no comment. So July 22nd, I made a third request to have a follow-up meeting. Silence initially, but later that day, got a note back in essence from the president that said, a follow-up meeting or conference is not required. Those lakes are now algae-free. Okay. July 25th, Bonita Bay Community Association sends out a newsletter to all of us that live, residents that live there, also indicating that the algae is no longer present, was the essence of what the letter said. July 28th, 3 days after they send out the newsletter, Southwest Florida Water Management District came in and confirmed that there was indeed blue-green algae in this lake. July 28th, August 5th, August 6th, August 18th, August 21st, August 22nd. Silence for my request for a further meeting. I've been sending out some updates to residents of Bonita Bay. So far, there's been 97 responses, 79 favorable for passing along this information, and 18 have been negative. Early September, Florida DEP came into the neighborhood, met with some officials with the Bonita Bay Community Association. I think it was the grounds or maintenance manager, and got some information from that individual. The individual said, please talk to the chemical company that works with us here in Bonita Bay. So they did that. And this is all public record. You can see this. That's Florida DEP. The stories didn't match. The information did not match. The information was inconsistent. So August 25th, Florida DEP came in and took a statement from some workers from Bonita Bay. So I'd like to read that statement that the worker from Bonita Bay gave. And they wish to remain anonymous, so it says it right on the form. I have been an employee for many years of Bonita Bay. Every Monday, there was a meeting to discuss a plan for the rest of the week. Chemicals are mixed on the ground next to the lake, and chemicals are dropped into the lake frequently. There are spills and fish kills, and the spill kits are outdated and old and are not maintained as they should be. Sometimes this is spilled into the drain at the end of the week to get rid of the excess or the spills. When spills occur, I'm sorry, the writing's difficult. When the spills occur, they allow it to flow into the lake and into the sewage drains, often requiring the workers to spray chemicals into the lake and employees to dump chemicals into the sewage drain towards the end of the week so they can go home early. They mix the chemicals beforehand and an extra amount of chemicals, quote unquote, just in case they need to kill, and I can't read what it says, I'm sorry, when they are expecting an investigation from Florida Department officials or potentially OSHA, they move the chemicals from the maintenance shed to an old truck and place it against the fence to avoid bringing attention to it. They dump old chemicals on Country Club Drive near Wood Lake, and its dirt surrounding is with very little traffic and tree coverage. I have rocks covered in the blue-green algae, or in the, excuse me, I have rocks covered that are turquoise green and blue in color, and my concern is that people are using the chemicals improperly. And that was a sworn statement taken by the Florida Department of Education, of FDEP, on August 28th. So fast forward now to September 10th, Florida DEP comes back into Bonita Bay, goes over to take samples where this worker indicated there was a problem. They see a chemical truck, sure enough, parked by the lake, out of cover behind some bushes, and with tinted windows, they said. For whatever reason, the windows were tinted, so they couldn't see anybody, but they could see a truck. So they were going over to take samples. They took water samples and they took soil samples. The sample that they took from the water, their thought, although they didn't see anybody dumping anything into the lake, is that the truck had just dumped something into the lake. So they took a water sample of where they saw also, again, a neon blue and a neon green color. So they took water samples and they took soil samples on September 10th, and those samples have been sent to Tallahassee. I continue to have people in the neighborhood talk to me. I continue to have workers in the neighborhood that talk to me, all of who shall stay anonymous to protect their rights, quite frankly. It's unfortunate. I met with a board member. One of the board members did acquiesce on Monday that I met with, and I also met with somebody from the country club, because some of the lakes are run by the Bonita Bay Community Association, and some are run by the Bonita Bay Golf Club, Country Club. From the mouth of the member of the Bonita Bay Country Club, when there's problems, Bonita Bay Country Club, we run it like a business. From the mouth of the Bonita Bay Community Association, actually he said this, but the Bonita Bay Community Association member agreed. The Bonita Bay Community Association has their standard answers when anybody calls to make an environmental complaint. And it's often combative. So there will be, FDEP will be back in the neighborhood, and I will continue to send the neighbors updates. But where this is, the lakes drain in to the Imperial River. Spring Creek is also there. Estero Bay, the neighborhood is surrounded by water. And whether this problem is getting into our public waters, I don't know. I haven't seen that yet. I know that there is drainage into our public waters. And then all of a sudden, this doesn't become a neighborhood issue. This becomes an issue for everybody in the city that's on the water in Bonita Springs. So in the guise or under the health, safety, and welfare of our community, I want that information to get out. I'm going to continue to send newsletters. And if the Bonita Bay Community Association wants to send out quote unquote damage control letters that are inaccurate, they can do that. But I guarantee I'm going to continue to send out what I'm hearing. I'm going to send out what's on public record. And one last thing, they did say to me, I said, well, why would they send out an inaccurate newsletter? They felt they needed to respond to the newsletters you were sending out. I said, even if they're inaccurate, they said they wanted to get out a response. And now, quite frankly, the country club is worried that the community association is going to make some knee-jerk reactions into response. So I really hope there aren't any knee-jerk reactions. I hope they admit there's a problem. Certain members have admitted there's a problem. The president has not admitted there's a problem. He said the problem's solved, and if you read the newsletter would confirm that. However, I just respectfully disagree, and where this potentially could affect all of us that use water in the city of Bonita Springs, I wanted to bring this information forward. So thank you for that. What do we have now? Anybody else? Any mayor and council member reports? We've done that. Approval of the minutes for July 15th.
So moved.
So moved in a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Corumba? Aye. Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Okay, members of the public that would like to speak, public comment.
Oh, yeah. Yes, let her. Hey, before public comment,
I'm sorry?
Mr. Mayor.
What are you asking? I can't hear you.
That's fine.
Okay.
Before public comment, I think Arlene was still
Yes.
gonna recap us on our line
I'm
dancing.
sorry.
Oh,
at
line
the end of-
dancing, I'm
on my
sorry.
end, yes.
Rick, just 1 second, I'm sorry.
There has been some outreach from the instructor for line dancing, and Derek and Nicole and I did review the policies and procedures as set forth with the direction we received at the last council meeting. We are allowing adult activities at every level, and tonight you also approved a contract for the adult soccer to occur. But as the instructor would be the only person under what we're looking at to be required to wear a mask. I know there has been some comments of concern with that, but to be a full disclosure, many of the folks who are in the at-risk category who are attending or using the weight facilities or using the facilities at the recreation center have been pretty vocal about wanting to see our staff wear masks and those involved. And as an instructor, they would be a representative of the city and be asked that we wear a mask. The participants would not be required to wear a mask during the class. So we have had outreach with the instructor. We've offered that explanation as well. Lifting that restriction and talking with Derek for one instructor as a representative of the city, you would be opening that same ability to everything along the way, and that is not the direction that has been provided for the youth activities. So to be consistent with every activity, the youth activities are the coaches are abiding by the mask requirements. There could be some liability issues that Derek had pointed out further, but we have been in contact with that instructor, given the information to them. We've left the dialogue open to them to come back and talk with us. We have also even made some other provisions where there was concern about microphone use, and we have disposable pads with microphones. So all that's, any concern regarding wearing the mask and being heard, we've worked through those issues.
And also, just in case they're listening, I would like to, they did ask if hypothetically they were to get all of the women in the class to sign a waiver that the instructor herself, because the instructor is the one who has the problem with the mask, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
Okay, so,
Well, and the participants are not required to wear a mask.
so
while
they aren't
participating.
required, and it wasn't their instructor who reached out to me, it was one of the other folks who came to the meeting the other day, but their thought is, they've done this at other places supposedly, they could all sign something saying that they were okay with it. And I was like, I go, I'll talk to staff and I'll get you a full clarification. I can't pressure anything that's gonna endanger liability, insurance issues, or anything like that on the city, but I would advance the conversation. So I just wanna make all the way to the end from what they've said now, hey, we'll do this, is it okay now? Mr. Attorney.
I mean, my concern on this is we are not a private rental hall. You know, we are a government entity.
Right.
And it's not just this instructor's, the class, there could be many members of the public who want to take advantage of our programs. Those programs are looked at as public-facing programs of the city. And in that guise, I think, I cannot think of any policy direction that would not open us up to liability to make specific exemptions. We did contact other dance studios. All the dance studios in town require both the participants and the instructors to wear masks. And speaking to the instructor in this case, she understood and disagreed with our position, but she did indicate she had another facility available. And so I don't think there's any harm or foul if she has another facility, and I take her at her word at that, then she can continue to do so. We will look to see if there are other instructors who are willing to do that, so we can continue to offer those programs at the city.
And my understanding was the way the conversation ended, she said she looks forward to working with us again once the mask thing is done.
Correct. And the city staff's comment to her is the same exact, should she feel she couldn't move forward, we hope then when restrictions are lifted that she comes back to our facility. That was mutual.
Okay, great. So, that's all.
Derek, a question. What
Yes,
happens
Laura.
when it becomes scientifically absolutely certain that wearing masks actually caused more problems? Are we liable because we forced people to wear masks?
That was not the intent of what I was asking.
Hello?
I would assume that at that point where it is a law of physics or medicine, that at that point we'll no longer have emergency orders requiring masks.
No, because the consequences will occur. They are occurring. So are we liable when it's certain that the wearing of the mask was a problem?
We have an exemption for anyone who has a medical condition, and we did, the instructor indicated if she got a doctor's note that would indicate she could not wear a mask, we understood that. We were not requiring her to wear a mask, but that does not also require us to allow her to teach classes, so.
So she has a doctor's note, but she can't teach?
Correct.
Oh, interesting. It's sort of an elitist policy, isn't it? You wear a mask, but not me, and somehow we're all protected. All right.
All right, just to rope this back in, I just wanted to make sure that my point isn't to relitigate masks. I just want to ensure that this constituent has.
Can't hear you, Jesse.
I said I don't want to relitigate masks, and I said I just wanted to ensure that the constituent had a full and thorough understanding of the policy and how we got to it, so that she didn't feel like we were just sweeping her under the rug and ignoring her. So I think you guys have done that, and if.
Well, I don't understand how the city has the right to override.
Hey, I'm still talking, thank you. Okay, so with that being said, if she does have a problem and gets back to me, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Rick,
Okay.
you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm so glad you brought up the problem with the lake in Bonita Bay. That's just such a piece of the iceberg. Bonita Bay is not the only gated community in the city of Bonita Springs. And when Davis Hickory and General Nutrition built Bonita Bay, they did an A1 quality job. And I don't know how many, 10 years maybe, it's been in the homeowners association. And my experience, I went through the Pregnancy Resource Office, which is attached to the Welcome Center at Bonita Bay, to turn in my donations that they solicited at the New Life Church to help women have their babies rather than have abortions. Well, when I got in there, the bushes were so overgrown, there was like 2 feet into the parking spot. So very little area to park, you couldn't really see anything in there. So I get out, and then behind the building is a pile of brush this high. Well, from my experience on Hickory Boulevard, where years ago the neighbors would pile the stuff on the vacant land on the east side of the sidewalk, and then mosquito control says, well, you got to get rid of that because it keeps the chemicals from getting down to kill the mosquitoes. So having a big pile of brush, besides the snakes and whatever gets in the big pile of brush, I don't think it's legal in the city of Bonita Springs to have brush piles and stuff like that. So there's a world of opportunity in the gated communities as far as improving the water quality and the code enforcement to all the other things that all the other people in town get to live with. So I'm glad you brought it up, and I hope you keep on it, and when you retire from your office here, you can work in that full time at Bonita Bay. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for being here. Other members of the public? Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Barbara Ogle. I live on Carnoustie Court in Bonita Springs. I'm sure some of you have seen on Week News the flooding problems that we've had in our areas. So Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the fact that you've brought up the lakes in Bonita Bay. We are not a gated community, but we are flooding all the time. And so I hope you keep that in your minds when you work with the city with Baron Collier. Also, I have to say, with the masks and Councilwoman Carr, the head of the CDC just said on the national news, not Fox, but the national news, said that wearing a mask other than a vaccine is the most important thing you can do. And for a public person to come out and say that masks are not important, I don't care what your personal preference is, your goal is to try to save as many people in your community as you can. And if you don't believe in wearing a mask, don't wear one. If you want to wear a mask, wear one. But don't come out and say that this is just go out, take the mask off, go out in public. You know, if you believe in herd immunity, stay with your own herd. And I was watching this at home, and I was so angered by this statement that I drove over here tonight. So regardless of what you think about a mask or no mask, it is not your right and your privilege to bring this out and try to sway the public that you're supposed to represent. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Other members of the public that would like to speak? Anybody else from the public? Okay, seeing none. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.